Hello, everyone, and welcome to Snap Take. This is Glazer of Snap Judgments, the official podcast of Marvel Snap Zone, and today we're going to talk about Arishem. We're actually also going to talk about two bounce lists and an Ajax list, but we've got two different Arishem lists that hit number one, so we have to lead with that. Arishem has become the tier 0 deck of the meta, but bounce is really good, bounce is really fun right now, so we've got two bounce decks as well. And of course, we've got my initial impressions of Ajax. Just a reminder, this is the last full Snap Take with me for the week. We will have wonderful guests for you both tomorrow and Friday, as I'll be in the Bahamas. Please hit that sub button, hit that like, hit that comment. It really does help the channel grow. It really does help us out, and it would mean the world to us. We bring you 7 days a week of Marvel Snap content with the best, most up-to-date decks of anyone in the metagame. If you've found that, and if you're willing to help us out, please hit that sub button. Watch as long as you can, like and comment. In addition, if you're still looking for a season pass, we're giving away one a week for the rest of the season, and then we give away like 10 the first 2 weeks of each season. So if you're interested, please make sure you watch this video. At some point in this video, I'm going to ask a question of you. It's a very simple question. You answer, and as long as you're subbed, you're entered to win a season pass. One day's videos this week, I will pull the comments, run a RNG basically, and one of the comments that answers the question will win a season pass. That's usually in Sunday's video, but I'll be getting back Sunday, so it'll be in like Monday or Tuesday's video. So if you're looking for a season pass, make sure you hit that sub button. All right, so we've talked about this list before. This is Crazy's Arishem. FAK Crazy is one of the top players in Marvel Snap. He was number one on the Infinite Leaderboard in both March and April, and sort of busted out as an amazing player in the Johnson Cup. He stormed to the number one spot on the leaderboard this season with this deck. It has been ridiculously successful, but we've already covered it twice on the channel, so we're going to move forward with a new deck. This is Batman 99, a player who has been in the top 10 numerous times. Arishem deck. This hit number one earlier in the day, and I was all set to run with this deck as the deck for the day. You'll note the big change here is that Echo has replaced Quinjet. That is one of the main Arishem choices left to make, whether Echo or Quinjet is right. And then the other choice, we've got 3 5-drops we really want along with Mockingbird. We've got Leech, Legion, and Dr. Octopus. We're deciding along the lines of those cards. Almost everything else is set. We are getting closer, because as of right now, as of this recording, we've got another Arishem deck that hit number one. This one chooses the Quinjet over the Echo, but it's running Enchantress along with Shang-Chi instead of that Nocturne spot, and it's also got a Nick Fury. We also here have Dr. Octopus over Legion, and we're keeping Leech. You see how this is all just choosing sort of between the same slots and the same basic cards. Please note that this version is using sort of Echo and Rogue, while this is using Enchantress. Enchantress is over Rogue, and then over Nocturne, we have Nick Fury as a way to get extra 6s. Nick Fury, when he's in this list, goes really, really well with Quinjet. He's not common, but hey, he's in the number one version of the list right now. When I played the list a lot, I personally really thought Nick Fury was very powerful. This version is all teched out by Desperate Jill, a player who just, again, hit number one on the Infinite Leaderboard as of this recording and is currently sitting in that number one spot. Earlier today, it was Batman 99, and then even earlier than that today, it was Crazy. So, like, we again are seeing Arishem sort of take over the meta. This is the tier 0 deck right now. I'm going to tell you, I did not have a ton of fun playing Marvel Snap right now. I was starting to feel overwhelmed by all the Arishem, and I started cope staying and getting frustrated. I fell from about 450 to 600, just playing unhappily. I played some Arishem. I didn't enjoy playing Arishem. It felt very on the rails and not exactly the kind of deck I like. And then playing against Arishem, I lost, I'm pretty sure, around 16 cubes to generated last turn Chiaras today, which was not a wonderful feeling. Marvel Snap is now the Arishem show. Arishem is the best deck until further notice. It is what to do, what to play. Very few decks stand a real chance against Arishem, at least very few decks that aren't just Darkhawk decks, and Arishem is running like, look at this deck, like all the tech to answer Darkhawk. Batman 99, oh, sorry, we did that already. Batman 99 is always near the top of the Infinite Leaderboard, and I've never heard of Desperate Jill before, but Desperate Jill is now the current number one player. You can find Desperate Jill on Twitter at the name on the screen. Loki, Blob, Mockingbird are the Arishem core. They're in every version of the deck. If you don't have Mockingbird, I think it's worth giving a shot to She-Hulk. Just it's fairly often you end up skipping a couple energy, and you can cheat She-Hulk out relatively early here. If you need other replacements, please mix and match between the 3 decks. Note that all 3 are running Goliath. You're stuck with Magneto if not. there's not really another great shout out than Alioth. Alioth is quickly becoming part of the core because Alioth answers two major problems the deck has, both Shang-Chi and Arishem. Sorry, excuse me. Both Shang-Chi and Darkhawk can be answered by Alioth as long as you have Prio. Alright, so these decks are all like chilling in the number 1 and 2 spots right now. Turn 1 is generally, if you're playing Echo, it's pass. If not, it's Quinjet. Turn 2, you want Coulson or Nocturne or a generated card. You're also totally fine just playing that damn Quinjet. Turn 3 is Loki, Coulson, and if you have Fury, Fury is fine. Please keep an eye on hand size. If you have Fury, you don't necessarily want to fill your hand and cost yourself a draw. Turn 4, Leech, Dakok, Legion, or Loki. All fine plays. Again, read what your opponent's playing. If your opponent's playing Surfer, all of a sudden Leech or Dakok look amazing. Is there a location that Legion wins the game? If you're running Legion, that's awesome. I got an 8-cuber when I played earlier today on a close down the game. Well, sorry, a 4-cuber. It would have been 8. The opponent obviously ran. On a Kiln, I locked down the whole game with Legion. It's a very fair and balanced card. Turn 5, Blob or a 5. If you're playing a Darkhawk deck and there's no cost reduction elsewhere, you can try Alioth if you're pretty sure you know where they're going to Darkhawk. If there's a location that's screaming Darkhawk, feel free to Alioth. If not, try and gain priority elsewhere so that you can Alioth whatever they're doing to follow up that Darkhawk. Turn 6, Blob, Alioth, or tech cards, and you're totally fine to go. And you win the Marvel Snap game. It's pretty good. My question for you today is going to be, fundamentally, Arishem is sort of solved. I'll keep tossing up the new Arishem decks. Do you want the full guides? How are you feeling about Arishem at this point? How are you feeling about Arishem deck coverage at this point? Do you still want a ton of Arishem coverage? Or are you, should I just show you if a new Arishem deck pops up? And if not, just sort of note that its presence. This is the tier 0 deck. This is what the entire meta revolves around right now. It is the best thing to do, the most common thing to do, and it is everywhere. This is Desperate Jill's Arishem number 1, and this is Batman 99's number 1 Arishem. Cool. Let me know the answer to that question in order to potentially win a season pass. If you would like to see gameplay for these Arishem decks and then the bounce decks and more, check out the stream team. Today is Wednesday, which means the great GamingwithFlashX will be streaming these decks. Make sure you check them out at 5 p.m. Eastern. Tomorrow will be Parry Manilow, and if you check this morning, Prashaun has a video on YouTube. All right, next up we have Gnome's Havoc Bounce. Gnome did really, really well with this. I think this list is really cool, although it did take a hit with the recent release of Ajax because that put Luke Cage back in a lot of decks, which makes your US Agent worse. US Agent is quite good. I was able to take out a couple of blobs, just lowering the power enough and going tall enough in other ways with this deck to still be competitive. This feels about as good as we're getting right now into Arishem decks. You'll still lose most of the time. I don't think anything outside of like pure Darkhawk has a really great win rate into Arishem, but this one gives you a shot. Gnome is a top 100 player. He's chilling around the top 40 right now. You can find Gnome at twitch.tv/gnome__plays. Super nice person. He's been on the podcast. Check him out. White Widow here can be Jeff or Falcon. Widow is important, but not like pivotal. For US Agent, you can try Shadow King or Shang-Chi, but both of those are significantly worse plays than US Agent in this list. And that's it. Unfortunately, you're going to need Sage. You're going to need Havoc. You're going to need Thena. You're going to need Kitty for this list. And you're definitely going to need Hope. Hope is actually amazing here. All right, so Gnome climbed to the top 40 from around the 60s with this, so it's doing really well in High Infinite. It ended up with a low 60% win rate, which, hell, for a bounce deck, longtime viewers know, bounce is my favorite archetype, is more than enough to get you featured here. Turn 1, Bast, if Sage, Hood, or Havoc are generally better than Kitty. You want 2 of Sage, Hood, Havoc, unless you already have Beast, in which case you're more willing to just play the Bast. Angela is better than Thena, is better than White Widow for your turn 2 play. You tend to want to get Angela down, and Thena can be incredible, but not do a lot for a couple turns. In particular, if you have Hope, Thena's not doing a ton. If you can play a 2-1 on 3 rather than Hope, I will often do that and just play Hope with a 1 on 4. That's perfectly fine. Hope and a 1 is fine if you have Thena out, or you can just drop 2 2s. Turn 5, I like Havoc and Beast. You can also end up saging on turn 3 or 4 and then beasting that back around turn 4 or 5. That's perfectly fine as well. And then you want to replay that sage if so. If not, Havoc, Beast, and a 1 are perfectly fine. You're just trying to get some cheap stuff to play so that you can sort of go off. Then turn 6 is Sage and US Agent, and if you have the ability to, drop some demons, and that's how you win this with this deck. It is incredibly strong. It is hard to snap with. It is hard to know you're going to win until very late in the game, but you can conceivably snap going into turn 5 or turn 6 with this list relatively often. The opponent, once you have an idea of the opponent's power output, which is very hard against Arishem. Fair warning. But against other decks, once you have an idea of the opponent's power output, you're relatively safe snapping because you should be able to count and see how much power you're going to be putting out to end the game, more or less. Really love this list. Props to Gnome. Go check them out. All right, the Munchies Maketh Mantis. Sorry, Munchies Maketh Mantis. Ugh, terrible name. Bundle is out. This is a 1,500 gold for $10. It's fine value. This is on the lower end of what to do with your money. It's largely a skip. I think it's also largely a skip because Mantis is a freaking completely unplayable card. If you must have it, you can buy it. It's not a terrible buy, but this is not a good use of your money in Marvel Snap. The other current bundles are both better. Oops, sorry. Next up, we have our Ajax deck, and then we're going to get to our last bounce deck. So let's give you my immediate Ajax take. He's not good. I knew he would be bad this week. He is, in fact, bad this week. He might just be bad. He's a 5/7, not a 5/5. But he might just be bad. I got him in 1 key and then used a Spotlight key on the Darkhawk, just in case anyone's wondering. But he has not been good. This is probably the best shell for him right now, and this is also a very awkward shell if you don't see Pixie. That is probably just a better deck without Ajax. I, again, have not liked this card. This card needs to be 4 cost to be any good. I do not think Ajax is workable as a 5-cost card right now. I think this card absolutely needs to be a 4-cost card. This list is largely a Pixie list. We've seen this list for ages on this channel. This is the Dickens Butt list. This became a Sersi list for a while. It's back to being an Annihilus list. Annihilus is actually reasonably well placed into Arishem. You need all the cards here, but you can try Sersi for Annihilus. Jimmy Dickens and Butt, neither one are content creators. Butt won Snap Judgment League Season 2. Dickens finished in the top 3 and was beat by Butt. Butt will be on the podcast that comes out this Saturday with Husky Puppies. What do you, sorry. Yeah, you need both of these. If you would like to find either of these players, they hang out in Yowity MJ, Husky Puppies 35, Gnome Plays stream, KX4N. They're around those streams if you're interested in finding them to ask about this deck. This card has had a serious lack of relative success. That's why we're mostly here throwing it into an already known shell. Turn 1, you Hood. Turn 2, you Pixie over White Widow over Mysterio. Turn 3, Debris or Mysterio, Mockingbird if you can. Turn 4, Sentry if Annihilus or earlier turn Stuff. Turn 5, Annihilus or Ajax. Turn 6, Ajax or Annihilus or Hazmat and other cards. You're often going to have to Hazmat on turn 4 here, along with your like Mysterio clones, Hood, and White Widow out and stuff like that, because you're then going to want Annihilus and then use all those extra cards to give yourself a powerful Ajax. It is very awkward to play Ajax as a 5. If Ajax was a 4, you can Annie on 5, and then you could play Ajax and Hazmat on 6 and be totally fine. As is, I don't think this really works. I'm telling you. I think that this card's serious problem is that its key enabler, its best enabler by far, is Hazmat, and they don't really work together well. Without you leaving a naked Ajax out there or having Magic in the deck. And the decks that run Magic don't really have space for this. I'm not about this life. I don't think this is where we want it. All right, custom card challenge. It is. We're doing this every 2 weeks now. Oh my god, I didn't write us a new custom card challenge. So there is no new custom card challenge as I go away. I will drop the next custom card challenge next Tuesday, and we will do it in a week. All good? We'll do the next custom card challenge after this one. We'll start it in a week. I'll post that video next Wednesday. Got it? Because that's when I'm back from vacation. Sorry, got vacation coming. Don't want to restart this video. But we had a theming of Works with Arishem and Works with Arishem both thematically and in terms of the card. So we're going to have 2 Eternals. Not Eternals. What are these things called? Celestials. That would work with Arishem. All right, so this one is way too good. It's here because I think it's super duper cool, and I wish it was in the game, but it has to be toned down. So I have suggestions for how to tone it down. So the winner is the artist. Also, there were a lot of really cool cards, I think, that didn't really work thematically. They worked with the card Arishem, but they didn't work thematically with the idea of Arishem. But this one also won because this looks like Kirby art. I don't know if it is Kirby art, but it looks like Kirby art, and I'm a sucker for that. So at the end of the game, look at the top 5 cards of your deck and copy the text of a card you tap. I love that. It feels like an activate type feature, so we know that they might have the ability to do this because this seems like activate. So this is just generally good, and Darkhawk decks would like kill for this ability. However, 2 cards is probably enough for this ability. Should only look at the top 2, and he probably needs to be an ongoing so he can be interacted with by cards like Rogue or Enchantress. However, with those caveats, I think I want this card badly. This would be amazing in Arishem decks, but amazing in an absolute ton of decks, and I love this idea. So props, it even comes with 2 variants. We've got this one of him reaching out. It's reaching out and sort of like going after what seems like Captain Marvel and Parry and Zemo. Great looking card. That would be the Spotlight variant. And then we have one where the card is gold for some reason. And that would be an ultimate variant, holding something in his hand. But I also love that it's Esson the Searcher, and he searches. It's phenomenal. I love it. Our next one is Crow. I believe it's Crow. That's how you would say it. I don't know how to say it. Whatever. Yeah, that card. Either which way, this is JD 128. This is an Eternals related card. This is a card that ends up in a relationship with Thena. It's a shapeshifter. On reveal, destroy a card from your deck that didn't start there and become it. That is so cool. This one is like far and away a card that I think is amazing. It's great in Arishem decks. You're just getting a random card for 3, right? But you're also thinning your deck by 1, which seems really cool. You can trigger it multiple times. It should work great, amazingly, silly good with Thor and Beta Ray Bill, which I love. It's just going to sort of become one of Mjolnir's thingy-majiggies. You could even do that in a Lockjaw in that case, which is going to destroy the previous one and then play this one. Yeah, it works great with Mr. Negative. If you're running Mr. Negative, any Thor nonsense, if you could pull that off, you can figure it out. You're running this with Ravonna to make it a 2. It's obviously insane in Arishem decks, and it's pretty damn good with Thanos. It gives you an extra Infinity Stone. I love this card. I want this card. It even comes with 2 totally different looking variants because this is a shapeshifter. I actually really like the one on the right. So huge props for, again, I'm going with Crow. Crow is the name. We're not doing that, so next up we have Buddy's Wolfhawk Bounce. Buddy built this bounce deck that I've been having a lot of fun with. I'm going to be honest, I don't think this is as good into the meta as the one I shared earlier, and we'll take a look at that in a minute. However, this one is super fun, and it's a more heavily bounce-based. Gwenpool gives you an extra win condition outside of your Darkhawk Werewolf stuff, because sometimes you're just dropping a bunch of like 8 power 1-drops, which is very, very good. You have more on-reveal ones here as an extra way to rock it. Because we have Gwenpool, we're not bothering with Bast in this version. So the hood is gone, but outside of that, this is a very similar deck. So you can find Buddy at twitter.com/BuddyLean, 2 Ds, 2 Is. Buddy has amazing decks, really, really cool decks all the damn time. Buddy had that Guardians Sandman deck that we really liked last month. If you don't have Gwenpool or Swan, you're going to try the one on the next slide, and you can mix and match as needed. This is the list that I still have a 70% win rate and top 600 now infinite. I should probably just play this list. It is my current favorite and most successful Marvel Snap card list. It's real good, y'all. You should try it. All right, turn by turn and snapping. So first, this deck is awesome and a blast. I've been having success with it. Again, I'm not 70% win rate, but I've been having success with it. Turn 1 is Korg over Iceman. Turn 2 is White Widow. Turn 3, Werewolf is better than a 1 and Grandmaster or Beast. Turn 4, you want to drop Gwenpool if possible. If not, you can play cards and Beast it back. Turn 5 is Grandmaster, Gwenpool, and a bounce. Or if you used your bounce on turn 4, or you can use a bounce here, you can Falcon and Black Swan. And then you play a bunch of stuff and Sage or Darkhawk to end the game. And then you win, because it's not super complicated to win. This is just putting a lot of power on the board. No Shadow King, no nonsense. This is all about dropping massive amounts of power all over the board. Very cool deck. Huge props to Buddy for coming up with this great idea. We're on to our questions of the day, and then we're out of here. So we got 5 for you today. Floggy Blobby asks about clog tips. He feels like he's having trouble with clog. So the reason you're having trouble with clog is very likely anticipation. You need to be able to figure out where to clog. So if you're struggling with clog, that means very likely your initial inclination of where to play cards like Debris or Green Goblin are proving wrong, right? So if that is your current struggle, I strongly suggest that when your gut says, as you're about to play this deck, I should play Debris here, you go, no, that's what my gut says, and my gut has not been successful. Instead, I'm going to try playing it here. and I bet you that really, really improves your win rate. You are trying to win with a low amount of power most of the time with most clog decks. If you can get the opponent clogged, it shouldn't matter though, because Cannonball removes whatever power they have, or Shang-Chi does, and Dagger gets to either a 12 or a 24 if they're clogged, and if Dagger gets to a 12 or 24, you win that way too. Koire asks if I've been to population-dense cities like Tokyo. The only major cities I've been to are New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, Miami, Toronto, and London. So they're all in the same general around the Atlantic, except I guess LA. That's like as far as population dense ones go. New York and London have a very similar vibe. Toronto has an almost similar vibe. Chicago feels very different. I don't know why, but it does. I would love to go to Tokyo. I would love to go to Mexico City. I have not done either. Tokyo is a down the line trip when my son is a little older. I don't think he'd really enjoy it at this point, but I'm very curious to see how different it is from New York, which is fundamentally, since I'm New Yorker, what I compare everything to. Lunacris asks my coffee shop order. 99% of the time it is black iced coffee. Once in a while I get a splash of hazelnut or vanilla in that black iced coffee. On a weekend, occasionally I will put a single splash of whatever creamer my wife has in the house in my black iced coffee. I like coffee. I don't really need the extra bells and whistles. I do like occasional frozen bullshit if we go to a frozen bullshit coffee place, but that is more like a dessert than something I'm drinking for coffee. Heretics Lee wants to know how bundle variants should come back, and I think, honestly, they should just come back in bundles. If people know that they're going to come back in ways that they can get them for free, they'll just stop buying bundles and wait, even if that waiting is forever. The original token system taught us that, so that said, they should just be in new bundles. Like you sold a bundle variant in a bundle, you sell it in a bundle again of similar ratios. Ryan Wood is curious what my thoughts are on the concept of forgiveness. Okay. So, actual forgiveness is not a given, and it's not necessary for healing. We like to think it is, but that's more to make the person who did the harm feel better than the person who was harmed. Forgiveness is... Okay, how do I want to put this? I had a way to put this. We always say forgive and forget, and I don't think... not forgive and forget. I'll forgive, but I can never forget, is what I keep hearing. I don't think it's about forgetting or not forgetting. Like, you can remember it, but if you're dwelling on it, you haven't forgiven, right? If you've forgotten it completely, you also haven't forgiven. You've forgotten. That's a different word and a different feeling. What forgiveness is sort of an accepting of the pain and an understanding of change. Without change, there's not really such thing as forgiveness. However, the thing that always comes with that is, like, people go, well, have you learned your lesson from that? We do a lot of terrible things, like all of us, that we say we learn from, but we don't, right? Like, there's this... I've yelled at people I care about and hurt their feelings. Why? Because I did it at the time. I didn't need to learn the lesson that was wrong. I knew that was wrong. But whatever impulsive action took place, forgiveness in those instances is fundamentally a decision that a transgression is not bad enough to end a relationship, whatever type of relationship that may be, familial, romantic, so on. The behavior changing can be contingent on that forgiveness, right? But I think that, like, I think that that's not a good way to look at it, right? I think that when you forgive someone, when I forgive someone, I don't know when I forgive someone, I'm sort of accepting that the behavior happened and that they're aware that it happened. And I'm letting it go to the extent that I'm not going to dwell on it any longer. I hope that they will change the behavior. But that's not really contingent upon my forgiveness or not. And I think certain things are entirely unforgivable. There are certain types of harm that, at least for me, I don't know what other people think, should not necessarily be forgiven, should not necessarily be accepted. Sorry, I'm trying to organize my thoughts on this. I had it organized, and then I talked about Marvel Snap for the last 25 minutes, and they sort of fell apart a little bit. When I transgress, and we're going to use transgress to be person who needs forgiveness. My goal for forgiveness is for the other person to know that I am aware of harm I caused and I'm dissatisfied by it, and thus would like to change it, and will do my best to change it. But I don't hold most people to the standards I hold myself to in those situations. Because forgiveness isn't saying you should be me and see things like me. It's saying that I would like to continue this relationship in such a way as we're no longer living on that harm, mistake, or whatever it may be. And as such, I will stop holding this over you such that we can continue the relationship. And again, ideally that behavior doesn't happen again, but in smaller transgressions, like arguments with a partner, right? Like arguments happen. Hopefully they don't cross certain lines, but arguments with a partner happen. So hopefully those sorts of transgressions don't become too common, or they might become a breaking point where you no longer wish to continue that relationship, and thus there is no forgiveness granted. There's that whole thing where, like, I've accepted forgiveness of you from 20 years ago, even though we've never spoken. That I don't exactly understand. That seems like a more vague. That seems more like I've come to accept what happened and I'm no longer angry about it. But I don't think that's what forgiveness is. I think that's sort of conflating ideas. So forgiveness is ultimately about relationships and where you want them to go, I think is where I land on that. Hopefully that answers your question, Bob. Certain tiers of support on our Patreon come with on-air thanks. I'd like to say thank you to Abigail Huslin, Mandatory Burnout, Cables, Irregardless, David G. Wingfield, Direwolf, LAB, FaThorNewman, Good Dog Gamer, This Is the Way, Inc., I Am Frostman, Jane Everett, Doomer, Primed Ryan, Caretixley, Koiray, Pyrophros, The Goat Seeker, Denman Falcon, Quid Pro Joe, Docty, King of New Marvel Snap Content, Fat Nick, Ginger Prime, Philip Rakovich, Haplo, Kenny Logs of the Danger Zone, Rob Silverman, The Bizza, Exorus V, and Skippy G. Tommy Nyquist, winner of Snapchat's League Season 1, The King of Bros, Bro, Black Dahlia, The Grey Kazoo, Jessica Gamble, Ryan Wood, Kev Sihoda, Luna Chris, Archangel 3K, John Q, Louis Antonis, Models, Mod Supreme, Darth Tater, Remus Atala, Brian Kaufman, Tristan H. Martin, Jason B, J.D. McDonaldino, The Fuzzy Dunlop, Spectrum X, Hoot, Matt H, DJ Mikey Hijinks, No Frickin' Flex, Ocularis, Greg Sterry, Seamus, Jonesy, Two Ties, The Great Lorem Devs, The Pirate King Tuccrr, The Homie Min, and of course, Gunny T, where the T stands for. I'll be on vacation, but I'll do my best to leave you an OTA video before I go. Peace.